There are certain traits women bring into the workplace that tend to get misread. Emotion is one of them. Today I'm talking with Kelley Sanabria, founder of Blue Morpho Leadership, to explore how emotional awareness, communication, and self understanding can help women lead more effectively in the workplace. Welcome, Kelley.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Can you walk me through your background and the work you do with leaders and teams?
Yeah, sure. So I am the founder and CEO of Blue Morpho Leadership, where I'm a leadership consultant and I get to blend my love of facilitation and relationship building and executive coaching. I work primarily with leadership teams and executives who are navigating some type of conflict. And I develop the tension to momentum framework, where the core idea is that organizational tension is not always just a problem to solve immediately or eliminate immediately. I mean, yes, we want to provide relief and let people get back to their work, but there's a lot that we can learn and grow from that will help teams in the long run. Um, I trained in executive coaching at Georgetown. That is where I discovered a framework called polarity thinking and absolutely fell in love with it. And that tends to be a big part of my work because a lot of the things that we think are problems to solve are actually tensions that we have to manage over time. They're not solvable, they're like paradoxes. Um, and so the primary kind of initial step when I'm working with teams is a leadership tension audit. That's my primary diagnostic tool. And that is where I map the tensions and dynamics that are driving team dysfunction so that leaders can stop suffering and get back to that work that they really want to be doing. And the common thread with all of my work is just that I can't stand unnecessary suffering.
That's really interesting. Where do you see women holding themselves back in the workplace, even when they're highly capable?
So the most common pattern I see in women holding themselves back is really just going silent. I cannot tell you how many women I coach around confidence. And I think part of it is that we, as women, will tend to over index on empathy. And so we become very attuned to others' comfort and we'll start over managing for that comfort or for other people's comfort instead of speaking our own truths. And so the way that this shows up, and this has been me too, right? Like, you're in the Zoom call and you've got your hand hovering over the mute button, like, am I going to unmute myself or not? I work with a lot of women who hedge their language. So they'll say like, I might be wrong, but, or I'm sorry, just not speaking up in in-person meetings, over explaining themselves. And so I hate to think about women losing their voices. And I believe there's a real organizational disadvantage to these voices not being in the room. There's wisdom and diverse experiences, unique perspectives that the organization will never get if a woman doesn't own her voice and if the culture doesn't support her in doing so.
Yeah.
So,
Sorry, go ahead.
you go ahead.
Yeah, I was just thinking, reflecting on kind of my own experience in corporate culture and also in the military. Um, there's almost like a protective element to, uh, you don't want to be seen as too aggressive or, lack of a better word, like a bitch. You don't want to be seen, but you also don't want to be dismissive or not dismissive, domicile or too gentle. Like there's this really kind of fine balance where you want to be seen as authoritative, like you know what you're talking about, but not so much so that you are going to impose on anybody else in the room. Such a strange mix of feelings that you kind of bring to the table as a woman, just from my own experience.
Yeah, I love the way you're framing that because that's exactly what I've experienced as well in terms of working with women. It tends to be this polarity between like confidence and empathy or confidence and humility.
Mm.
And so, what we want to do is not over index on either side, which we tend to over index on like the humility and empathy, but we want to be able to move between them. We want to be able to leverage both so that we can lead with intention and leverage the best of both worlds. And I also like that you pointed out like, it's like, oh, you don't want to be a bitch. It's like sometimes I work with women who actually overcompensate.
Oh, I've
uh
been there.
yeah,
especially
and
in
they
the,
want to be, they're
especially
like,
in the military.
yeah,
Yeah,
right.
because
So
you
they want to,
almost in like hyper masculine environments. At least my impression when I was in my early 20s and teens, really 18, 19, early 20s. I felt that if I didn't come in with some balls and aggression, with it being single digit percentage in my career field for women, I was going to get walked all over. And it's unfortunate because it's not authentic to who I am, but it becomes a part of your personality.
Yeah. What a great example of lived experience of exactly what we're talking about today. Thank you for sharing that.
So, what are some of the unspoken rules do you think that women are kind of navigating in these circumstances or in these workplaces?
There's a couple of things. One is that modern corporate structures were largely designed when leadership was overwhelmingly male. So that shaped things like authority norms, communication styles, expectations around availability, expectations around emotional expression. So there's this unspoken rule, right? Like emotion doesn't belong at work. Composure means that you're competent, having emotions is
Mm.
weakness, feeling things is weakness. And women carry a double burden here because we are biologically wired for higher emotional attunement. This is through estrogen, oxytocin, the hormonal influence of the menstrual cycle. I know I'm in the back of my mind, I'm like, who am I telling right now? Um,
No, no, I love it.
the expert in the room.
No.
And we are also socialized to track relational dynamics and read emotional cues even more deeply. So we walk into workplaces that we're not really built ready to receive both of those things. And the emotional labor of business falls disproportionately to women. And that emotional labor is not yet widely recognized as a leadership skill, which I 100% think that it is. Research shows that teams who have psychological safety are 50% more productive, they're 76% more engaged, and they're 74% less likely to leave their job. So those are massive numbers on the ROI of this emotional labor that women are doing.
Can you expand more on the emotional labor concept?
Yeah, I think it's like carrying this burden of being in these rooms and being the one who is feeling things, carrying things, being the one to hold that sensitivity, make sure that the environment is okay. All of that emotional labor that we're doing, like you said, managing yourself, feeling like exactly what you described, feeling like, well, I have to show up this way, but I don't want to be too much this way, right? Like that's
Mm.
a lot of emotional labor that I think many male counterparts don't need to navigate in the workplace.
They're just on autopilot. They just go in, "Here I am, this is what I know, take it or leave it." And
Yes.
while we're kind of the back of our mind questioning every interaction, every approach, every idea that we present, what do you think is misunderstood about emotion and leadership?
What do I think is misunderstood about emotional leadership? I think it is the biggest misconception that I see is that emotions are inconvenient and that we should
Mm.
kind of strip them away so that they don't interfere with the real work. And I just, as somebody who's like a massive feeler, I'm like, that is nonsense. That's insane to me. We are human beings. And so, what's so fascinating to me about this is that emotions are actually older than language. They live in the limbic system of our brain, which is one of the oldest parts of the brain evolutionarily. Language and rational thought came later in a different part of the brain in the neocortex. And so when we tell people to leave their emotions at the door, we're asking them to ignore the intelligence that is literally older and faster than words. And so the feeling is the emotion, and the work is learning what to do with it.
What do you think about the argument where somebody might present, "Hey, that's fine and all, but there are some work environments where life and death is involved, or ex you have to be, quick thinking like the emergency room or a combat environment, a firefighter, police officer, and the sense of emotion being a liability." What do you think about that? So outside of the corporate environment.
Yeah, I love that you're bringing this up because I do tend to think inside of a corporate environment more. I think what comes up for me in that situation is there probably is a lot of compartmentalization happening. And so when we think about our central nervous systems, it's like, how do we learn and teach ourselves to be able to do those jobs in those situations and long term be able to take care of ourselves?
Mm.
I had the privilege of working with a lot of veterans who've been through really, and their families who've been through a lot of serious situations abroad. And you can see a lot of times these central nervous systems just don't know how to unwind. They don't know how to relax. And so I think part of it is what you're calling out fundamentally is awareness. Like if you know you're going into that situation and you know that this is going to be happening, it's like what we do in the gym. How can we train ourselves? How can we manage our central nervous systems, prepare ourselves, know that that's going to happen, be aware when it's happening, realizing, whoa, I'm experiencing something right now. I feel stress in my body. I feel whatever it is we're feeling, and knowing what we need as human beings to take care of ourselves before, in the moment, and then after, would be my best advice. But I will caveat that by saying I'm not like an expert in that.
So in practice, that awareness that you're talking about, what does that look like to then bring to the boardroom or bring to a work environment in order to kind of show up and lead effectively?
Yeah, I'm personally a huge fan of meditation. I have found for me, and there could be other things for other people, but a lot of the executives that I work with, I will recommend meditation and try to get them started on that path, because it does train our brains to be aware, and it helps us when these dynamics are happening around us, and we're not aware of them. It's like they're happening to us. But when we can start to see them, we become aware and we can use the dynamics. And so we can move from being reactive in those situations to intentional. And that's where we can go from like suffering from the tension to leading through that tension. And the other thing that's really cool is that we can co regulate. So, like, if I can manage my nervous system as a leader when I'm with my team, their nervous systems, like we're all these nervous systems just walking around and like sensing from each other and trying to pick up
Yeah.
from one another, and so they will sense that my nervous system is calm, which I think is to your point too about leadership in more extreme situations, right? Like if we can regulate as leaders, we can help to regulate the teams around us, um, and just make our decisions from a more intentional place versus a reactive place. When we make those decisions from intentionality versus reactivity, it opens up so many more options for us because we can't engage the best parts of our brains. We can't be our best selves when we're just in that reactive kind of primal brain space.
Yeah, I like that reframing of the idea of leading not through force and this is what you're going to do and listen to me and ignoring the tension that comes with that. And more so, okay, where am I at in this space? How am I feeling? How is that affecting my workers? Not to the point where it freezes you from action, but it's just something where we all kind of sit in consideration of that, where
Mhm.
that empathy and that emotion is actually a valuable tool because now that's going to earn trust and team building and you can bring up other people with you versus it just kind of being like, hey, I'm the boss. Although sometimes you do have to say that. There are some situations where you are the boss and that just kind of is what it is. So with your work, I know, having done some research, you're also really passionate about menstrual health and menstrual care. Would you mind kind of talking about some of that?
Sure, love to. So I basically what happened is that I am a real tree hugger, like zero waste is this, the idea that we're not putting trash into the environment. And so I think in 2017, I learned about menstrual cups through the zero waste movement. I
Mm,
started using a menstrual cup myself, which if anyone's not familiar with it, I happen to have a box of them sitting on my desk. So I'll just show you. This is what a menstrual
I like
cup
a show
looks
and
like.
tell. Yes.
I have an entire box of them. Um, and also cloth pads. I have them sitting here too.
Oh,
These are all like
nice.
samples. I got into the menstrual cups through the zero waste movement. And what I realized was like, A, it felt so much cleaner. And then I started researching around, the typical disposable pads and the chemicals that they have in them, the forever chemicals that are in some of the period underwear, how those chemicals can leach into your body easier in the vulvar area because of that skin, and because it's that skin that is moist and can absorb things. It's more cost effective. It is healthier. It's better for the planet. And it also, I think, is a major factor in people being able to get to school and get to work. Because in the United States, 1 in 4 girls misses school due to her period. And so when we think about like female leadership, I mean, how can we how can we fill that pipeline of female leaders if we have girls who can't get to school because they have a period, which again, none of, the male counterparts will be dealing with.
Yeah, it's really not cool, but interesting how you've been able to intersect what you've been doing on that corporate business side, and there's just it just trickles down. And I think kind of the larger, I don't know what the word is, picture here is that it is finding where women need more opportunity or more leeway or more growth in these areas. And it really is, whether you're 12 or you're 45, there's always room to grow and kind of change the culture and change the mindset. So what you're doing is really cool because it affects things at all levels.
Yeah, thank
Um,
you. I hope so.
yeah. Yeah. So I wanted to talk to you something a little bit of slightly in the menstrual health, menstrual care, but you've shared that you have polyendocrine metabolic ovarian syndrome, which just recently got renamed from PCOS. What are your thoughts on that recent name change? And do you think it reflects kind of more of the condition?
Yes. I will tell you, as an emotional and reactive, emotionally reactive person, I am so excited about this name change. Um, just because my own personal experience has been that the metabolic and hormonal difficulties with PMOS, I'm not even used to saying it yet,
No, it's
are
harder to say, I
so tough.
feel.
I know it is, right? We're used to PCOS. But those difficulties are so tough. They are so tough. I mean, I cannot tell you how many years I tried to lose weight by being completely off sugar, completely off flour, CrossFitting 4 days a week. And my body was like, no, we're good. Like, we're good. And so, I feel like I could just look at like a bagel and gain 5 pounds. And so, with that, the previous name, it always felt like people didn't really understand what a burden it is. And I mean, the weight is just one side effect. There are many, as you know. So I'm still processing the name change, but I think if I'm being totally honest with you, what comes up for me is that it's so validating. It feels like it more
Mm.
closely validates my own struggle. And I'm hoping that people will begin to understand now what that, it's just such an uphill battle, that they can start to understand a little bit better that uphill battle.
Yeah, for listeners that don't know, PCOS stood for polycystic ovary syndrome, and the issue with that kind of naming was it implied it was just cyst in the ovaries, but it was never cyst in the ovaries, right? It was follicle development and the string of pearls, and there were women that would not present with that, but present with those with insulin issues or androgen excess. So um, excess hair in areas we don't want, but also hair loss in places that you do want hair, acne, again, that blood sugar regulation. And they would have all these other markers, but it would be dismissed because the name PCOS really made it just seem like it was a reproductive issue. But really, it's a full metabolic endocrine system problem. So, yeah, I'm with you. It's not going to be a magic fix, but hopefully it's going to bring awareness to the issue. It's going to help that diagnostic framework because names do matter, and hopefully women will get the treatment they need sooner and the care sooner and not wait 10 years to find out that their infertility struggles or their weight gain or their acne or all these things, especially with me working in the birth control hormonal realm, that they can get some real treatment and not just be symptom based but be full body. um, yeah, I love the work and the passion that you have for changing the narrative, educating women, and also not even just women, like leaders in the corporate environment. If somebody wants to work with you and they're just excited about what you're doing, like I am, where can they find you?
Awesome. Thank you. Yes, they can find me at bluemorpholeadership.com. Also on YouTube, been having a lot of fun learning how to make shorts and videos over on YouTube.
Yeah.
So I'm Blue Morpho Leadership over there. And also connecting on LinkedIn is a great way to connect. And yeah, like I said, if anything from this conversation feels relevant, that leadership tension audit is a great place to start. We can map what's actually happening on the team.
Thanks, Kelley. Make sure, guys, to check out Kelley at her website, all the social media, and we'll see you guys in the next one.